coming up. Well hit deep to right field. Goodbye, baseball. Way out of here.
Griffey swings. There it goes. Long fly ball, right field. It is a number 600.
The throw to the plate will be late. The Mariners are going to play for the American League Championship.
The Kid.
Play in center field for them. Puts that one to left field. First swing is deep. Kittle back. Goodbye, home run. His first swing at the Kingdome.
The Natural.
High fly ball, well tagged this time, and Junior going back to the track. The wall makes the leap and makes the catch. Amazing catch by Junior as he takes a home run away from Luis Gonzalez. My, oh my!
A generation of baseball fans grew up idolizing and emulating him. A prodigy more talented and more captivating than the game had ever seen. A fearsome slugger and sublime center fielder who assaulted the record books and ultimately did the impossible. He made baseball cool. He did it with his swing, he did it with his smile, and he did it with his swagger. This is the story behind Ken Griffey Jr. In retrospect, no progeny has ever been more destined for baseball greatness than Ken Griffey Jr. Not only was his father and namesake an eventual 3-time All-Star and 2-time World Series champion who ultimately spent 19 seasons in the big leagues, but Jr. was born in 1969 in Donora, Pennsylvania, the hometown of Hall of Famer Stan Musial. As fate would have it, Griffey even shared a birthday with the St. Louis Cardinals legend. His ascendancy was preordained, it seemed, and it certainly didn't hurt his development that he spent his early years hanging around the Cincinnati Reds clubhouse, his old man's proverbial office, surrounded by Hall of Famers like Johnny Bench and Joe Morgan. Meanwhile, while most kids were taking their first awkward hacks in T-ball, Jr. was getting private hitting lessons from his dad, who managed a .303 batting average in his 12 seasons with the Reds. Rather than teach his son to hit by pitching to him underhand, Griffey insisted on throwing overhand to Jr., and soon enough, Sr. was mixing in off-speed pitches and breaking balls too. Before long, the young Griffey had developed a preternatural knack for hitting that put him in rarefied air as a little leaguer. In his early years of organized baseball, Griffey was so much better than his peers that parents of opposing players suspected he was older than he actually was. His mother had to start bringing his birth certificate to his games. As a junior at Cincinnati's Moeller High School, Griffey set the school record with a .478 batting average, clobbered 10 home runs, and hit 91 miles per hour on the radar gun with his fastball. He had also developed into an exceedingly graceful center fielder, with uncommon speed and instincts in the outfield. By the time his senior year rolled around, big league scouts were salivating at the prospect of landing Griffey, and they started turning up to his games in droves to get a glimpse of his swing, the one that would eventually inspire a generation of copycats. That year, the first selection in the MLB draft belonged to the Seattle Mariners, an afterthought of an organization still searching for their first winning season a decade removed from their founding. And though their scouts fawned over Griffey like everyone else, the Mariners nearly blew their chance to land the generational talent. Team owner George Argyros was gun-shy about taking a high schooler after the organization blew the first overall pick in 1979 on Al Chambers. Argyros was also dismayed about Junior's disappointing grades in high school, as well as his performance on a pre-draft mental aptitude test administered by the Mariners. A bevy of evaluators and front office executives insisted on Junior, though, and even staked their jobs on the kid's future excellence. Eventually, Argyros relented, in part because Junior was so eager to start his pro career and go first overall that he was prepared to accept a below-market signing bonus of just $160,000. So, with the first pick in the 1987 draft, the Mariners selected Ken Griffey Jr., making him the first ever son of a big leaguer to be taken first overall and setting into motion one of the most indelible careers in baseball history. Griffey's first taste of professional baseball seemed like a dream. He made his minor league debut barely 2 weeks after the draft and immediately made mincemeat of the competition. The 17-year-old hit .313 with a 1049 OPS in the Low A Northwest League, leading the Bellingham Mariners in virtually every offensive category and generating more buzz than any teenage prospect to come before him. Junior, it seemed, was on the fast track to the big leagues and superstardom. Under the surface, however, Griffey was struggling mentally. The youngster had always put a tremendous amount of pressure on himself to be perfect, and now, with the first overall pedigree and the signing bonus, the external pressure was mounting too. When he returned home following his first pro season, Griffey was different. He was hurting, and he was confused. He started to miss curfew, worrying his mother and angering his father, and soon enough, his relationship with his dad, whose own career was winding down, grew quite strained. Junior fell into a depression, and his struggle culminated in January of 1988, when he swallowed 277 aspirin tablets one night in an attempt to end his life. He was promptly rushed to the hospital, where he had his stomach pumped and was placed in intensive care. When Senior heard of his son's suicide attempt, he hurried to the hospital, filled with equal parts worry and anger. There, he got into a shouting match with Junior, who got so agitated he ripped the IV out of his arm. It was a harrowing ordeal, but it also facilitated growth for all parties involved. The incident, which Junior emerged from in fine health, created a greater sense of understanding between Senior and his son, and ultimately strengthened the bond between the two Griffey men. From that point onward, Junior was locked in, and after another outstanding season in the minors in 1988, the 19-year-old found himself on the precipice of stardom. Griffey arrived at big league spring training in 1989 without having played a single game in AAA. He was also the best player in camp. And after watching the highly touted youngster tear the cover off the ball in the Cactus League, the Mariners decided they couldn't break camp without him. So, instead of getting sent to Calgary to get some reps in at AAA, Griffey was named the Mariners' opening day center fielder. He had made it. Naturally, expectations were sky high for the teenager, but Griffey delivered. Right off the bat.
20, 25 years from now, you're going to want to say, I was there when Ken Griffey Jr. made his home debut. So don't forget that on Monday night. There's a drive into the gap in left center field, and deep left center field, and Henderson's not going to get to it. It's off the base of the wall, and Griffey to second base in his first major league at bat, a ringing double off the 375 marker, and we have seen that all spring. Welcome to the show, Ken Griffey Jr.
As a rookie, Griffey put all of his tools on display, smacking 16 homers with 16 stolen bases and a highly respectable 748 OPS for the Mariners. Though he ultimately finished third in American League Rookie of the Year voting, Griffey was by far the most exciting new talent in the game, and his combination of precociousness and boyish charm made him one of the most beloved players in the big leagues from day one. The increasingly bright spotlight didn't seem to faze him either. The following year, Griffey improved in virtually every facet of the game. He increased his OPS by nearly 100 points. He hit .300 for the first time in his career. He smacked 22 homers and swiped 16 bags. And his superlative play in center field earned him his first of 10 Gold Glove awards. For his efforts, he earned a trip to the All-Star Game, the first of 13 trips to the Midsummer Classic. Still, those accolades notwithstanding, the highlight of Griffey's sophomore campaign was unquestionably the magical final month of the season, during which he made history alongside his old man. In mid-August, the Reds released Ken Griffey Sr., who had recently turned 40 and couldn't swing it like he used to. It looked like his long and illustrious career might be over. The Mariners, however, had other ideas. 2 weeks after the Reds released Sr., the Mariners added a second Griffey to their lineup, reuniting father and son for one unforgettable stretch run. On August 31st, 1990, Sr. played left field and hit second for the Mariners, while Jr. played center and hit third, becoming the first father-son duo to play together in a big league game. And as if sharing an outfield in the big leagues wasn't special enough, the Griffeys went out and did the unthinkable 2 weeks later.
Well, he's helping an inch back up there now. Well hit to center field. Devon White going back. Gone! A two-run home run.
And he can still hit anybody's fastball.
An instantaneous 2-0 Seattle lead. And he hits one well to left center field. Dante Bichette. Back-to-back home runs.
What else
On September 14th, Junior and Senior became the Major's first father-son duo to hit back-to-back home runs, blasting successive homers off Angels right-hander Kirk McCaskill. Seemingly, teaming up with Junior was a tonic for Senior, who hit .377 in 21 games down the stretch with Seattle and turned enough heads to secure a one-year deal with the Mariners for the following season. Ultimately, the magic faded in '91 as Senior started the year on the disabled list and played only 30 games before a herniated disc ended his season, the final season of his career, in late May. Junior, however, continued to grow and thrive. He upped his average to .327 in 1991, turning in another All-Star campaign and earning his first of 7 Silver Slugger awards to propel the Mariners to their first ever winning season. And he was still just scratching the surface. In 1993, with 3 All-Star seasons already under his belt, Junior tapped into his power stroke, hitting 45 homers while still putting up a .309 batting average to finish 5th in American League MVP voting. The following year, despite losing the final third of the season to the 94-95 players' strike, Junior clubbed another 40 dingers to lead the AL. Before turning 25, Junior had become the game's biggest and brightest star. Kids everywhere were modeling their swings after his and infuriating their Little League coaches by wearing their hats backwards. As it happens, Griffey's iconic look wasn't born out of a desire to stand out. Rather, it developed naturally. As he later explained, the only way for him to wear his dad's oversized baseball cap growing up and have it stay on his head was by flipping it around. Nevertheless, the look became his signature, and it imbued him with an undeniable cool. And his enviable combination of talent and cool ultimately made him the rarest of commodities, a baseball player with legitimate pop culture viability. Throughout the 90s, Griffey was everywhere, on video game covers, on chocolate bars, even on The Simpsons.
Try some. Wow, it's like there's a party in my mouth and everyone's invited.
He also became the first baseball player ever to have his name on a shoe when Nike released the Air Griffey Max 1. At an age when many prospects are still awaiting their big league debuts, Griffey had become an international superstar. Even Michael Jordan, the most famous athlete on the planet, wanted his autograph.
Where can Griffey go? I think turn it off and do whatever you got to do. Let me get my autograph.
And the best was still yet to come. In 1995, after the strike was resolved in late April, Griffey helped an increasingly formidable Mariners team to their first ever AL West Division title and postseason berth. Griffey spent significant time on the disabled list that season for the first time in his career, missing roughly 3 months with a broken wrist, but he made his presence known in a big way in October. Squaring off against the emergent Yankees in the best-of-5 American League Division Series, the Mariners quickly found themselves down 2-0 despite Griffey's outsized efforts. However, the Mariners staved off elimination with Randy Johnson on the mound in Game 3, then improbably erased a 5-run deficit in Game 4 to force a decisive Game 5. Griffey time. With his team down by 2 in the bottom of the 8th, Junior kickstarted the comeback with a mammoth solo shot off David Cone for his 5th homer of the series. And after the Yankees took the lead back in the top of the 11th, Griffey keyed another comeback with a single up the middle that put the tying run on third. Griffey, at first, represented the series-winning run. Cue Edgar Martinez.
They would lob a base hit into the gap, and they could win it with Junior speed to stretch. And the 0-1 pitch on the way to Edgar Martinez. Swung on the line down the left field line for a base hit. Here comes Joy. Here is Junior to third base. They're going to wave him in. The throw to the plate will be late. The Mariners are going to play for the American League Championship. I don't believe it.
In Seattle, that iconic moment is known simply as the double. And in the middle of it all, or rather at the bottom of that dog pile, was Junior, who scored the winning run all the way from first. The Mariners ended up losing to Cleveland in the American League Championship Series, but the significance of the double can't be overstated. The Mariners had gone nearly 2 decades without doing anything momentous. Finally, they had something to remember, and it was thanks in large part to Griffey. And as dominant as he had been to that point in his career, that's when Griffey really hit his stride. In 1996, he hit 49 homers and drove in 140 runs, inexplicably finishing 4th in MVP voting. The next year, however, the writers couldn't deny Griffey. The 27-year-old took home his first and only MVP award in 1997 after crushing 56 homers with 147 RBIs to lead Seattle back to the playoffs. The following season was practically a carbon copy of his MVP campaign, as Griffey hit 56 homers again and drove in 146 runs. The Mariners, however, fell well short of the playoffs, as many of their core players had started to age out of their primes. And after Seattle finished below 500 again in 1999, despite another 48-homer season from Griffey, the superstar had had enough. Following the 1999 campaign, Griffey, with 1 year left on his contract, demanded a trade, citing a desire to be closer to his family. The Mariners tried to entice him to stay with an 8-year, $148 million extension offer, but Griffey wasn't interested. He wanted out. And by virtue of his 10-5 veto rights, Griffey effectively had full control over his destination. Soon enough, Griffey decided there was only one place he wanted to go. Back where it all started, Cincinnati. On February 10th, 2000, the Mariners sent Griffey home, trading him to the Reds for a 4-player package highlighted by outfielder Mike Cameron and right-hander Brett Tomko. Almost immediately, Griffey, who had recently turned 30, finalized a 9-year extension with his new team worth $116.5 million. Griffey's homecoming was supposed to mark the beginning of a glorious new era for the Reds, who, outside of their unexpected championship in 1990, had mostly struggled since the days of the Big Red Machine. Griffey, it seemed, even had a chance to break the all-time home run record in a Reds uniform. Instead, though, Griffey broke down in Cincinnati. After smacking 40 homers in his first season with the Reds, a litany of injuries derailed the second act of Griffey's career. Over the next 4 seasons, Griffey played an average of just 79 games as his hamstrings, knees, and shoulders gave out. When he was out on the field, he wasn't nearly as consistent as he had been in Seattle. Still, that frustrating stretch wasn't without its highlights. Memorably, Griffey slugged career homer number 500 on Father's Day in 2004, with Senior looking on from the stands.
The pitch. And a high drive. Hit back into deep right field. Junior has just knocked the door down for the 500 club. A high drive into the lower deck and right. Number 30 touches them all. And boy, what a Father's Day gift for Senior.
The second half of Griffey's tenure with Cincinnati was better from a durability standpoint, but the attrition of the injuries, plus the ravages of age, had turned him from a superstar into merely a solid contributor. From 2005 through 2007, Griffey averaged 31 homers per year and was about 20% better than league average offensively, to say nothing of what the relentless lower body injuries did to his once stellar defense. The Reds, meanwhile, didn't make the playoffs once in Griffey's tenure with the club, though they did wring another iconic moment out of the aging slugger before trading him to the Chicago White Sox at the deadline in 2008, the final year of his contract.
He's back with a 3-1. Griffey swings. There it goes. Long fly ball, right field. It is a number 600 for Ken Griffey Jr. A no-doubter about halfway up in the lower deck and right. Ken Griffey Jr. circling the bases as they stand here at Dolphin Stadium. That's what they came to see here tonight, and from the moment it left the bat, absolutely no question where it was going to end up.
Outside of winning a World Series title, Griffey had little left to accomplish when the curtains closed on the 2008 campaign. He was a member of the highly exclusive 600 home run club and the All-Century team. He'd won an MVP award, an All-Star Game MVP award, and 3 home run derby crowns. His legacy as one of the greatest players ever was secure, as was his spot in Cooperstown. But Junior wasn't ready to pack it in. Instead, the 39-year-old returned to his old stomping grounds, signing a 1-year deal with Seattle and rejoining the Mariners for the epilogue of his career. He wasted no time making sure it was a memorable stint, going deep in his first game in a Mariners uniform since 1999.
The left-hander's delivery on the way to Junior. Swung on and hit deep to right field. Down the right field line, that baby is going to fly away. Ken Griffey Jr. with his first home run on opening day again.
And after smacking 19 homers in 117 games that year, Junior decided to come back for a 22nd big league season in 2010. In doing so, the 40-year-old became the 31st player in history to appear in a big league game in 4 different calendar decades. However, Junior's singular career ended in unceremonious fashion. He went homerless in April and struggled to hit his weight, got benched in May, and abruptly announced his retirement on June 2nd. 12 days earlier, Griffey had come off the bench and recorded what ended up being the final hit of his career. It was a memorable one.
The 2-1 pitch to Junior. Swung on, line to the right field for a base hit. Around third, here comes Bradley. Junior has won the ball game. My, oh my, with a shot into the right field corner. The Mariners come back from the dead and scored 3 runs here in the bottom of the ninth. And look at him, Bob Jr.
In more than a decade since his last big league game, no player has come close to capturing the imagination of fans like Griffey, whose influence on today's stars and the aesthetics of today's game is immeasurable. Modern baseball has never known another star so dominant and so transcendent, a fact that was reaffirmed when he first appeared on the Hall of Fame ballot in 2016. Out of a possible 440 votes, Griffey received 437, or 99.3%, establishing at the time a new record for vote percentage. Suffice it to say, the prodigy from Denora fulfilled his destiny, and then some. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button.